Hello everybody, it's me, Chad, your friendly neighborhood podcast host. Today's format's a little bit different. We've got Jeniffer interviewing an author at Warwick's Books. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Or spin your legs off on that cycle, or run like hell on the treadmill. Whatever you're doing.
Cynthia Sweeney is the author of the instant New York Times bestselling novels The Nest and Good Company. The Nest was a Barnes & Noble Discover Great New Writers pick and named one of the best books of 2016 by People, The Washington Post, NPR, and others. Her work has been translated into more than 28 languages. She has been a guest on Today, Late Night with Seth. How was Seth Meyers?
Oh, he's the best.
Was that, he really does support authors in a
He loves, it's so
way.
Adorable. He and his mom have a book group.
Oh.
Like his mother calls him and says, I think you should read, I think you should read this. And then
That's
yeah,
cool.
and then he picks people to be on his show, and he's just amazing.
No, he is such a supporter of authors and
he's
literature. He's
so
really,
great, yeah.
So I'm sorry.
And he's a real reader.
Yeah,
so,
no, he's not just faking it.
No, it's not like it's not like a vanity project. It's like a passion.
He definitely, you can
project.
tell by the way he talks about it. You really can.
He's read every book. He's great.
He's amazing. NPR's All Things Considered. The Nest has been optioned by AMC Studios and is in development as a limited series. Got to hear about that in a minute. She holds an MFA from Bennington Writers Seminars and lives in LA with her family. And we're celebrating the paperback release of Good Company tonight because because that was released during pandemic time in hardcover. So
Yeah.
Jeniffer Thompson, who's sitting in that other chair. Jeniffer has been a rock star for Warwick. I don't know if any of you watched any of our Zooms, but she has conducted dozens of virtual author events for us, and I'm just loving that we're here in person.
I know,
now.
it's so exciting.
This is really fun. So this is a new trend. That's, I think, but I still love the Zoom stuff, so don't get me wrong. I love sitting in my house sometimes. Jeniffer is creative director and co-founder of the San Diego Writers Festival. She's an author branding expert, digital marketing strategist, and host of the Premise podcast. This will also be on the Premise podcast in a few weeks. She's an author and speaker who delivers strategy-rich content and actionable tools that educate and empower authors. She's the founder and principal of Monkey See Media, along with her husband Chad, sitting over there. He's the one recording. An award-winning design firm specializing in book packaging, author websites, and digital marketing strategies. Ladies, have a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Julie.
you so much, Julie.
Well, I'm so glad to be sitting here with you. This is awesome.
Same.
Thank you, everyone, for being
Thank
here.
you. Yes, thank you guys for coming out on it.
We had a few more members of our book club that unfortunately one got bit by a rattlesnake.
Oh, no.
Whoa.
Come up. So we had them, they were.
That's totally
Jenny
fine.
didn't hear, but-
We're small but mighty.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. It's not something you hear every day. Well, she got bit by
Yeah,
a
she got bit
rattlesnake.
by a
She couldn't get it
rattlesnake.
together and get here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty good one.
We want to see that in writing.
Yeah, I'm going to tuck that away for when I'm too tired to go out too. So, yeah.
I'll be see you in a month.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, actually, I hope she's okay.
Sorry, I used to live in New York, and I saw you at the Center for Fiction.
Oh.
This is my first book event in San Diego. So
Oh,
Yay.
I'm so excited.
Oh,
awesome.
I'm so glad. Well, this is a iconic bookstore.
Yeah,
I mean, this
it
place
is.
is special.
It's
So.
where I come by most.
It is the best. So I just want to say thank God for paperback.
Truly.
Because here we are.
Yeah.
And this is your second stop on this tour?
It is. It is. So the very first book event I did was last night in Los Angeles, in my local neighborhood bookstore. I live only a few blocks away. And, everyone came, and then we all went back to my house for cake and champagne, and it was amazing. And I don't think I was just talking to Julie about this. I don't think I realized how, the creative process, part of it is making something, and then the other part of it, which is equally important in some ways, is putting it out in the world and talking to readers and interacting with people and hearing what people think about your book. And not having that part happen, I have found myself not very inspired to be writing again. And just even that little thing last night, just being in a room, talking to people about writing, talking about books, got me excited again. It's like you have to refill your tank, you know? And and this is a huge part of it. And I love independent bookstores. It's like where I spent my childhood.
Yeah.
And so I really missed that. I really sort of grieved not being able to go to all the places that had supported me so beautifully when The Nest came out. So.
Well, and everyone talks about this being your second book, so there's a lot of pressure for your second book to do well.
Yes.
You're in a pandemic. But it has done well.
It has.
It's done really well. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
I love all the characters. You write with such tenderness and this empathy that is just so beautiful. When I read a book like that, and I know I get to sit and talk with the author, it's so exciting because I get to ask you questions like, where did the story come from?
Well, it came very slowly. It started before I even finished The Nest. I was on vacation with my family in Maine, which we have done every year for many, many years. And I just had this overwhelming urge to reread Crossing to Safety by Wallace Stegner, which is one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
And
family.
Yeah, and marriage and friendship. And I finished it. I actually went to the bookstore and bought a copy because I didn't want to wait till I got home. And when I finished it, I thought, oh, why don't people write more books about marriage and friendship? It's like such a rich thing to mine, especially friendships that are marriages that take place over a long time, and what happens to those relationships as people's lives change, especially when they are sort of pursuing similar paths, but not everyone is moving at the same speed.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the initial idea, and then when I started thinking about it a little more specifically, I always try and sort of have in my head a question that I think I'm writing to, and for this book it was, what happens when life isn't all possibility anymore? When you have to sort of face the fact that the choices and decisions you've made have sort of piled up, and you are not waiting for life to begin, but you're in your life.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was kind of what I was
looking at.
Yeah.
I have had this question. Just in the last week, I asked a friend of mine. I feel like, and this happened a lot with Flora in the book.
Yes.
This idea of remembering. Like she's like, I got to remember this. This is really important.
Yeah.
And I was recently talking to a friend, and I said, I feel like I'm at the point in my life where instead of like looking forward to the excitement of the future, I'm looking back on the decisions I've made, and it's such a weird feeling. And I feel like Flora was kind of going through that as well.
Yes.
Were you personally going through this? Is that partially
why?
Well, I mean,
I really changed my life in a very dramatic way with The Nest, and I
what do you mean?
And I think what I was thinking a lot was, what if I hadn't done that? Like, what if I hadn't taken the plunge and gone back to school and decided to do this thing that in the back of my mind I always really kind of wanted to do, but I always told myself I didn't really want to do. And then also, I'm 61, and
you look amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your age.
And
you got your MFA at 55.
It like a little younger than that. The Nest came out when I was 55, like in my 50s.
Got it. Okay.
I think I was 50 or 51 when I went back, and it's just like my kids are older and out of the house, and so it is like a looking back, looking forward kind of moment, and thinking about what the next part of your life is going to bring. And the other part of it is, because I live in Los Angeles and because my husband's been a television writer, I have a lot of friends who are performers and in TV, they're writers, they're actors, and that sense that they have of, well, you only have a little bit of time.
Well, especially for women too.
Especially
in our
for
50s,
women.
right? You
Yeah.
were made to feel like, oh well, you know, it's almost over for you. Especially
Yeah,
in
yeah,
acting.
yeah.
and
If you're
entertainment.
if you're on camera, it's true.
Yeah.
But also just that I was so fascinated. I continue to be fascinated by my friends who do this work because you're starting over again all the time.
Right.
You can be on a hit TV show on a Friday and it ends, and Monday morning you're back doing auditions. And it's so much rejection, and it requires compromises, sometimes within a couple or with a family. Like, not everyone gets to do the thing they want to do all of the time, obviously. That's like the most basic sentence I will hopefully say tonight. But
But it's true. We're always making compromises.
well, I mean, in
right?
the arts, it's not like you have a job. It's not like you're an attorney or you're a doctor or you're an accountant or whatever you are, and there's sort of a path, and you're working toward the day when you can stop working. It's a different perspective.
What did you do before you went back to school to get your MFA?
Well, Jennifer, I did branding and marketing.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
So, you know, I have to ask, because this is about family and friendship, it's about the empty nest, but you wove in this thread of this acting troupe so beautifully. Like, it's almost in some ways a metaphor for the relationship that's happening. Was that always the case? Were you always going to have this about an acting troupe? Like,
It happened, I mean, when I first started thinking about the characters, I knew that I wanted some of them to be actors and I wanted one of them to be famous, because I have had friends who have become famous, and I've seen what's great about that and what's really hard about that. And I wanted to explore that a little bit. And then very early on in the book, I have a very good friend who is sort of straddles the theater, TV, director, showrunner world. And I was saying, I need something for these people. And he told me about this place called the Chekhov Project at Lake Lucille, which is north of New York City. And it is a married couple who have this theater company that only takes place in the summer. All they do is Chekhov. They do one every year. And everyone goes, they put it on in 2 weeks, and everyone goes and lives there. They camp out. They stay at neighbors' houses. And as he started telling me that, he was like, that might be a good thing for them. And so, that was fun. That was fun to build out. I talked to a lot of people who did it. I talked to one of the founders and made my own version of it, but it felt like something I could really use, because as my friend Rollin said to me, who had a theater company, and I think I put this in the book, you start a theater company because you want a family, and then you realize you've got a family.
yeah, with all of the headaches.
Yes, with
and
everything that comes with a
drama.
family. Yeah.
Reading this book, I was convinced that you had been in theater, that you had been an
No.
actress. Because it's like, I have friends
Yeah.
who are on Broadway and who are in New York and live that whole life, and I was like, oh, she knows.
Well, I talked to a lot of people.
You did a ton of
yes,
research.
I did. And one of the most gratifying things is hearing from people who are in that world saying,
You nailed it.
like, you got it right.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
that has been fun. But yeah, I talked to all of my friends, took them out to lunch, made them tell me all their best stories. And I listened to podcasts, I watched documentaries, so I just sort of immersed myself in that world, which was great. I love theater. I really, really love it. So, but I have never, but not since the high school play, so I don't think that counts.
It doesn't count.
No.
But did you always know, I mean, did these things sort of evolve as you were interviewing people and researching, and did the characters develop from those intimate conversations with your friends? Or, how did the book unfold in that way? Did it,
I mean, to be honest, the book unfolded at what felt like a grinding pace. It It was hard having a book where I was trying to integrate a lot of backstory when I still didn't quite know what the
backstory was?
Or what the present story was. So it was, it would be listening to someone or talking to someone and hoping that I would get a kernel of, something that would give me a scene that would move the story forward.
Tell us about the ring.
So when I started the book, I couldn't quite find my way in. I was writing, and I had accumulated, 30, 40 pages, and it just wasn't like taking off.
Right.
And I went on a business trip with my husband, and I've never done this before in my life. His business trip, yes. I left my wedding and engagement ring in the hotel room, and they disappeared. Oh. And the worst part about that was the wedding ring that I had taken to wearing was my grandmother's wedding ring. Oh. And it was like it was just like a tiny little band of white gold. It was worth nothing. You would sell it for $20, at a pawn shop. But of course, it was invaluable to me, and I was devastated, and I was chewing this over and telling everyone the story. And I couldn't believe how many people had a similar story of losing some piece of jewelry that belonged to a grandmother, an aunt, a mother, that, it's just an object, but it's imbued with so much meaning. Yeah. And I just thought one day, well, maybe that's how the story starts. Like maybe Flora finds a ring. Like how could that work? And as soon as I started writing it that way, everything kind of fell into place. So
I want to talk about the point of view. I loved you did the third person limited omniscient, which was brilliant, especially for this kind of a book, because like in the beginning I'm reading and I'm like, oh yes, I'm with the character and I get exactly what they're feeling, and like that's it, right? That's what happened.
Right.
A couple chapters later we get the perspective of a different character.
Right.
Through the omniscient. I'm like, oh. And it played so well in like the friendship and the family, this whole relationship thing that's unfolding. Did you always know that you would write from that point of view, or did you
I sort of gravitate to that, partially because I think it just keeps me interested in writing. But I think particularly for this novel, because I was writing about these 4 friends and the daughter of one couple, I felt like you needed to do that thing that you do like after a party or after a dinner party. Like even the people you love the most, they leave and you're like, oh my God, can you believe she was talking about that again? Like I can't, like if she talks about her stomach one more time, I'm not like, and they're people you love and they're people, but obviously we're all human and we're all flawed creatures. And we're all annoying in some way, and they have this very particular tension with their relationship, which is that 3 of them all started out in the theater with very similar hopes and ambitions, and they've all, had to gone off in different ways, and so it just felt like that made the most sense to me about how to tell the story.
When did you know that they would be bicoastal, that part of the story would be in New York and part of it would be in LA? Because you had moved to Los Angeles.
I thought the whole book was going to be in LA. Oh, and then
your heart
I don't
is
know.
in New York.
I'm not done writing about New York. I'm just not. It's like a magnet drawing me back. I mean, I lived there for 27 years.
You were born in Rochester, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I moved there right after college, like literally weeks after college. I met my husband there. I have my kids there. It's where I became a grown-up, and so it's very easy for me to write about New York. It's just like in my bones.
Well, in theater,
yes.
It has to be in New York.
Yes. Well, yes. Exactly.
I mean, that's where it all takes place, right?
Oh yeah.
And we do have good theater in San Diego. I will say.
Do you?
We do. We do have some good theater. in
That,
San
no, that's
Diego.
amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's good theater in Los Angeles too.
I would
It's
hope
not-
so.
It's not New York.
It's never New York, I know. But the magic of New York, I loved that piece of the book because there is something about being in New York and, you know, not just the theater piece, although that's part of it, but just like the magic of New York is so much different than LA. And the idea
Yeah.
that people are like, you're moving to Los Angeles, well, better you than me, right?
Oh, yeah.
You probably experienced that a lot when
Yeah.
you were moving.
Yes.
But it gave this tension for the characters too, of this love of their heart in New York, but doing something for their career, or in
Right.
this case, the
And I
husband.
mean, it is a real thing if you are in the theater. If you decide that's what you want to do, that's what you're going to commit to, you're sacrificing a lot of money and material things, and there is a real tension between people who leave New York to go to LA to do TV. You know, there are some people who judge it.
Sure.
There aren't many people. One of the interesting things to me was talking to my friends who are in the theater world, and there aren't many people who can do both because
theater and television.
because
Or even screen.
theater requires you being very big.
Yeah.
And television doesn't. And it's hard for people to go back and forth. And so the people who can, you know, someone like Laura Linney or, you know, Holland Taylor, you know, people like that. Yeah, but that is it's very valuable and it's unusual.
I saw a play, it was actually a Shakespeare here in San Diego. And one of the actors was from House of Cards. And so it was a real big draw.
Yeah.
She was terrible. Just dreadful. And I thought, wow, and she was so overacting. So I think the people who were, right, you
Yeah.
would think it'd be the opposite, but I think she
Yeah.
was trying to compensate.
Yeah.
And she overdid it, and it just felt so out of place.
Yeah.
And I thought about that scene as I was reading this book.
Well, my friend Adam, who went to, you know, Yale Drama and worked at Stratford in Canada, he thought that was going to be his entire life, doing Shakespeare in Stratford. And he's a real classical actor. And then he fell in love with a woman who was like, I'm going back to LA, where I'm from. And so that's where he lives now. But even when he's at a dinner party, he projects. Like his voice is so, it's beautiful to listen to.
Right.
But he said he has to consciously like bring it down when he, you know, goes to auditions. And
That's awesome.
yeah.
So Margot must have been so much fun to write.
Yeah, she was.
Speaking of big personalities.
Yeah.
She's pretty selfish.
Pretty. Yeah.
Where does Margot come from? Tell us about this character and writing this character.
I mean, I think that Margot is being famous fucks you up.
Amen, right?
It really does. And being recognizable and never really having privacy, but you also sort of get addicted to that. And you start to feel entitled to certain things and certain behaviors. And it's also a sort of job that encourages you to believe that, you know, you need to be taken care of and you need to take care of yourself. Like, you know, you can't do anything to your voice. You can't. I mean, it's a weird thing. And I talked to a friend of mine who has been on a procedural for many years, and asked, you know, she really helped me flesh out Margot's sort of like day on set and what would that feel like and how boring it is and how the hair and makeup people are terrible gossips and, you know, like all of that stuff. But I said to her at the end of our, you know, conversation, how do you feel about people recognizing you in public? And she sort of went, like I'd asked her how much money she made or something.
How much she weighs.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about that. And I was like, well, do you hate it or do you love it? And she was like, honestly, I complain about it, but when I go out and I don't get recognized, it bums me out.
Wow.
And I just thought, so I thought about that for Margot. Like I just thought about that validation that you come to depend on that is so peripatetic. You have no control over it. And I mean, I have been out with some friends of mine who are famous people and they're not being recognized. And I mean, they will all but like drop a glass of water
so that people will notice.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And you're just like, you complain about it all the time, but that table next to us is not recognizing you. And now you're standing up and stretching. Like, you know, I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
And it came across beautifully. And I think that the limited omniscient allowed you to tell that story in such a way that really worked.
Yeah.
Because we got to hear from Flora how nauseating it was that she wanted to be noticed.
Right.
But then we got to hear from Margot how awful it was to constantly be noticed.
Yeah,
so like
so terrible. And believe me, it is terrible. I have also been out with friends where that thing happens where people think they're taking pictures and no one notices, and or you know, someone comes up to the table and goes, I'm so sorry to interrupt your dinner. And it's like, well, you are interrupting.
Yeah.
You're interrupting a group of people having dinner. Like, you know, the advent of a camera in everyone's hand has changed that relationship between celebrity and fan to a really toxic degree. Everyone thinks they're owed a picture.
wow.
Like, hey man, I'm a fan, come on over. Can I take your picture? And it's, you know, there's something, you know, there are those cultures that believe that when your picture's taken, it like takes part of your soul.
Yeah.
And but having that sort of empty expectation on you does kind of empty your soul.
Sure. That's well said. Yeah. Having a phone in our pocket and access to everything everywhere really has changed the landscape of who we are as people and what we expect from each other.
Yeah. In sort of baffling ways. Like, what are you doing with that photo?
Right to privacy.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Ruby. She's just so
I would be
amazing.
delighted to talk about Ruby.
She's so grounding and so smart,
Yeah.
and she takes on the emotions of the adults in the story. And Flora is such an amazing mom.
Yeah, I think she's a good mom.
She's a good mom. I was like, you know, she makes such good decisions, and she stays grounded for Ruby, and Ruby is grounded, but she's the grounding force for all the adults.
Right.
So talk about bringing that character to life and what she means to you.
I think I don't, it's hard for me to remember now my exact decision process, but I knew I just wanted Flora and Julian to have one child. And I think because I have two sons, I shy away from writing sons. I don't write autobiographically that much, but of course your own life creeps into the books. And I just feel a little too protective of them still, although my new book is going to have teenage boys, so we'll see how that goes. But
your new book?
Yeah, yes. I mean the one I just started. So okay. I mean we'll see if it lasts. But I just, you know, part of living in New York too is because of space and money and real estate. I knew a lot of people who just consciously were like, we're having one kid because we've got a great deal in this apartment and we're never leaving. We can't move. It's like you just feel like if you have a good deal on an apartment in New York, you're like, well, I can't ever leave. It's a ridiculous
one
thing.
Kid, one dog, that's it.
Yeah. And you know, because I have a bunch of friends who have only children, they're sophisticated kids. They're more grown up. They spend more time with adults.
Yeah.
They tend to be very comfortable with adults. They tend to be very mature. And then I think I just thought about a kid. I was this kind of kid. My older son is like this, who's just like always taking the temperature of the house and worrying, like just worrying. Like when my son was little, I couldn't even say I have a headache. He'd be like, "You have a headache, Mom? You have a headache? How's your headache? Does your head hurt? What's going?" Like he's just that kind of worrier, and I just I don't know. Ruby was a sheer pleasure to write. Every time I had to write one of her scenes, it came really easily, and that's not normal for me. and so it was just fun. I just loved her. My friend Ruman Alam texted me after he finished reading the book, and he said, "I think you wrote yourself the daughter you didn't have." And I was like, I don't think my daughter would not be that cool. but she was sort of the platonic ideal of just a great daughter.
Well, and Flora is the great mom,
Yeah.
too. Maybe the great mom you would be to a daughter.
Yeah,
Or someone
maybe.
would want as a mom,
Yeah.
Talk about your writing process.
It's fairly boring. I get up early. I do the New York Times spelling bee. I try and write early in the morning. That's best for me. Then I'll sort of do research or take notes, or it's just kind of like going to work every day. And I do try and write 5 days a week. I like where I am now, which is at the very beginning of the book. I'll even try and just dip in for an hour or two on Saturday or Sunday just to like keep my head in it.
Keep the thread.
Yeah. So like right now my office is covered with those big 3M Post-its and colored stickies and notes, and I'm just trying to build out the world. I think this book is going to at least start in the 1970s, so that's been kind of fun. I really do enjoy research. And then it's just like grinding it out.
Did you ever consider giving up on Good Company?
I didn't. I don't think I ever thought. I don't think I ever considered giving. There were moments when I was like, "Is this a book?" Like I'm not sure this is a book yet. So, and it was very different from The Nest, because The Nest just had this very high concept. Right from the first chapter, what everybody wants. There's a big problem to be solved. Everyone's desires were just there. I just had to like bring them all home, And this is
It's more about feelings.
Yeah, it's more interior, and it's a quieter book, and it has a lot of backstory, which I struggled with because I don't like backstory in novels unless it feels like it belongs. So, there were times when I was like, okay, I'm just going to write the present story, and then I'm going to write all the backstory. And I had a hard time with the structure of the book. And so there were definitely moments where I, would just dump pages on my agent or dump pages on my editor and say, should I stop? And fortunately they said no.
I said, hell no.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's so much deeper. So did you intend to write a book that was going deeper than The Nest?
Yes. I wanted to, coming off of The Nest, which was like a 3-ring circus, I wanted a more focused book. I wanted to spend more time with a smaller group of people. And that was harder. It was just harder.
Do you think you were challenging yourself? I mean,
oh, for sure. I mean, if there's no...
Can I do this? Was that
yeah,
part
or
of
just
it,
sort of like, okay, I did it that way, and now let me use like a different set of muscles, and like cross training, and it was harder, but I think Good Company's a better book. I think that if it's not, writing a book is really hard. It's a really solitary 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And if I feel like if every book isn't better than the last book, if I don't take what I learned and then sort of evolve it in some way, it's really not going to be any fun. So part of what I'm always doing is trying to figure out how to keep myself entertained enough to stick with it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, which was also why I really wanted the theater world to be in there, because I do love it.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Another thing that I meant to ask earlier was, describing New York and LA, I know both, and you did so well. And there's a scene where you're describing an apartment in New York, and I've lived in an apartment in the meatpacking district, where everything does 3 things.
Yes.
Right? So the entrance to the bathroom is actually the kitchen.
Right.
And the place
Right.
where you keep your plates is actually the dish dryer.
Right, right.
And you did such a good job of describing that world and placing us in a New York apartment.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're small, and so you have to, especially when you have a kid, I felt like the apartment that we lived in when our kids were born, I felt like all we did was drive things out to our storage space in New Jersey. It was like, bring something in the house, load up the van, put it in the storage space. Our poor across the hall neighbor, I'd start putting things out in the hall, and he was like, you people move more stuff in and out of that apartment. I'm like, you are a single man. We have 2 children in here. So it was, but yeah, it's like a Jenga game. Like, how can I fit these people in this place?
How can this work? Which is so great. You had to have New York. And then in LA, you bring us to Griffith Park.
Right. Well, I live right on Griffith Park, so
I figured, because we're there, and it's really about the outdoors.
Yes.
And the beauty. You really captured the spirit of both places very well.
Well, that was a shock to me. We bought this house because I loved the house, and I knew it was really close to Griffith Park, and I thought, well, I guess that's cool. But I had no idea how amazing Griffith Park is.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how much I had no idea when we moved to Los Angeles that I would just be able to walk out my front door and go into this nature wonderland every day. And no one ever thinks about Los Angeles that way.
Yeah.
And it was really what I fell in love with about our new life, was being able to do that. Just being able to step outside. You can't. We lived in apartments, not the entire time that we were in New York, but for most of the time. And you don't just step out, you just don't open up a door and walk outside. It's the craziest thing when you think about it. And even when you had kids, it was like, you have to go somewhere. We're going to the playground, we're going to the park, we're going to the store. You just don't open a door and let them run outside. It's a crazy way to live if you look at it too closely.
Right. Do you do writing when you're walking? When you go on your walks to Griffith?
I do. I mean, I really believe in walking as a way to work out problems. When I'm frustrated, I go for a walk. I work out a lot of stuff in my head while I'm walking.
What are you working on now? Can you tell us?
I think the book is going to take place in my hometown of Rochester, New York, and like I said, it's going to sort of start in 1977, and it's about 2 families who become entwined in each other's lives in very complicated ways. So,
of course.
Yeah.
We have to have the complication.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, Otherwise, it's just a story. It's not a book. But
So you've done really well. Congratulations. I love good company.
thank you.
What is your favorite thing about being a successful author?
This, like, I haven't been able to do this, and I love talking about writing and books, and so being able to, I'm off on a 7-city tour, which feels like a miracle. And
None of us have masks on.
no, I know, we're just sitting here like actual
People.
humans, and I love that. And then I am someone who, I do like working by myself, and I do like those days. It's not every day, but on the good days where you sort of hit a vein and you're in it for a few hours, it's really satisfying. It's really satisfying.
Well, I hope you keep doing it for a very long time.
Well, thank
You're
you.
a lovely writer.
Thank you.
You write with such tenderness and wit. It's funny, and I mean, I just absolutely love your book. So
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for writing
so
them. I look
much.
forward to the next one.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we should open it up for questions. Yes. All right.
This is on behalf of our friend Leslie. She couldn't be here, but she's a writer.
Mhm.
She's an aspiring writer. And she was just presented with this amazing storyline that's somebody's true life. It's not someone she knows. Like, how would you, you were talking about talking to your friends and doing those kinds of things. How do you manage, because her thought was, I don't want to learn any more about it. I just want to take that little morsel and like run with it.
That's a good instinct. I think that, with good company, when I was talking to my friends, the first thing I said to them was, if I use anything that's, very directly what you told me, I will show it to you. And if it's uncomfortable in any way, we'll take it out. When you get into the building of the world of your story, you find that real life stuff is more a way for you to get into the world rather than like using specific details. It's just like to create a familiarity so that like I needed to talk to enough people. So that I felt comfortable creating this world. And my new book actually, if I end up sticking with it, is about a story of 2 families in our hometown, something that happened in high school that I've spent all of my life thinking about this story. But I don't really know much more than this very dramatic thing that happened between them. I don't really know the people involved. I don't want to know them. I'm not using them. I'm using the incident. So yeah, I think she should do that.
Okay, that's what I thought. Too.
Yeah.
We all kind of were talking about it. 'Cause I was like, that's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
And the girl who had spoken with the person was like, oh, here's his Instagram or whatever. And she was like, no.
Yeah. And, I know other writers who have, read about something in the newspaper or met someone who has an incredible story and have done something similar. And, it's also just easier.
If it's fiction.
Yeah. You're welcome.
What's your favorite book and what are you reading right now?
My favorite book. What is my favorite book?
It's a tough question.
It is. It's such a hard question. I really do love. I'm thinking about the books that I reread. I really do love Crossing to Safety. I love the writer Tessa Hadley. I tend to go back to her books again and again because she's able to say such complicated things in very clean sentences. Her characterization is amazing. I really love Elizabeth Strout. I think she's also just an incredible stylist. It kind of depends. Like, I'm just seeing Lauren Groff's book there on the shelf. If I want to read beautiful language, I'll pick up anything she wrote. She has such a unique style, and hope that it rubs off on me a little bit during the course of the day. Right now I'm actually getting ready to teach at a writer's retreat, and I'm figuring out my 2 workshops. So I've been reading a lot of craft books, but one that I absolutely love is George Saunders' book. What is the name of it? It's like a line from a Chekhov story. A swim in the pond in the rain. And he brings you through a series of short stories, all by the Russians, and then in his very engaging, funny, down-to-earth way, breaks down the stories. It's really a book of close reading, and I've been loving that. And I just picked up The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. I have been reading a lot of craft books. So.
Do you find that you can read fiction when you're writing?
Yeah, I
Good question.
read it all the time. Every once in a while, you'll pick up a book when you're working on something that feels not like it's not really the plot, but maybe the voice feels a little similar to what you're doing, and that I'll tend to put down and just wait for another time, or because it can kind of just mess with your rhythm. I can't read short stories when I'm working on a novel. So I have been reading some story collections. Fiona and Jane is a new one that I've really enjoyed. And what else? It's the craziest thing. I read constantly, and whenever someone says, "What are you reading?" my mind goes blank.
Totally blank.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay, I'll ask. Did you meet Jenna?
Only through Instagram Live. Yeah, we did an Instagram Live. I mean, I was on the Today Show from my office in Los Angeles, but then she does an Instagram Live right after the show, which was amazing. We talked for like an hour, and she loves books.
She's another Seth Meyer.
Yes, she really, really loves books. She reads all the books. That was really fun. I was so lucky that happened for Good Company, because publishing a book in a pandemic, man, it was a drag.
Yeah.
It was a drag, but yeah. Hi.
I'm also new in town, so I'm very excited that
Oh.
this is my first event in San Diego. I love books. I love your books.
Yay.
So when I was reading it, I kind of assumed that Margot was kind of like a Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
And I love Grey's Anatomy. I actually met Ellen Pompeo when she came to Oxford to do a talk, and I asked her what her favourite guilty pleasure TV was. And I guess it's appropriate to ask you as well. What's your favourite? Are you a Grey's fan? Do you prefer other guilty pleasures?
I watched Grey's like at the beginning, and then I sort of lost track of it. And yet I still somehow read the Vulture recaps, even though I no longer remember who anybody is. In fact, I read one the other day, and I thought, oh God, I wish I had read this when I was reading Good Company. It's like they want to send one of the doctors to space, and I was like, that would have been the best. Yes, like that would have been such a great way to get Margot off the television show. Tell her she's going to become an astronaut. So, but I love British. I love any British TV show. Like I love Call the Midwife. I love like genteel TV, like spinsters sitting around talking about, Danforth. Like I just love anything like that. I'm on BritBox and Acorn all the time. Escape to the Country, I could watch 24 hours a day. It's the most insane show. They bring these lovely couple, they want to buy a country house somewhere. They look at 3 houses. They never tell you if they ever buy the house. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I consider a guilty pleasure. Maybe some of those, Fire Fest documentaries, or I'm going to watch the WeWork thing or the Dropout. I like stuff like that. So, but I don't feel guilty about any of that stuff.
Good for you.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
One of mine was Younger, and Sutton Foster,
Yeah.
is one of the, that's who I thought of when you thought of it. It's very rare for people to be able to go
Yes.
from television
Yes.
to Broadway.
Yes.
She did a really good job of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've heard her memoir is really good too.
Yes, I want to read that. I've heard that's really good.
Younger is one of my guilty pleasures.
Yeah,
Sutton
Younger was
Foster.
good.
I think, well, I can't remember the name of the book, what she titled it, but.
It's something about crocheting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like how to crochet.
Like arts and
Oh,
some
yes, I have
craft.
seen
It's something
that.
crafty. Yeah. Yeah. My friend Pam Redmond actually wrote the book Younger, which I haven't read, but I watched the TV show. I very much enjoyed the TV show, even though it was like the most ridiculous. It's like they'd meet with an author on Wednesday and the book would be out the following Friday. And you're like, it's really not how it works.
Thank God.
Yeah, yes, truly. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Okay, one
Yeah.
more, yes.
I've loved reading forever. I've just been a bookworm since a child, and I always find it fascinating how you, as an author, you develop these rich characters and this rich dialogue. And I think about how do you create that? How do you create the dialogue? How do you create this characterization that's so deep and so detailed? Is it just drawing on your personal interactions, or how is that creative process?
I mean, sometimes you writing a novel is really hard because you have to make everything up. And so if there are opportunities like Flora lives in my neighborhood, because why would I put her in another neighborhood that I don't know? That was one thing I didn't have to work so hard to build. So of course she's going to live in Los Feliz. Ruby goes to a school where some of my friends' daughters have gone. So it helps to be able to even just physically imagine something that you know, so you're not creating it from scratch. And then the rest of it is it's just like bird by bird. It's just word by word. It's, you just have to really concentrate on picking details that are specific enough that the reader can sort of extrapolate from them. So if you're describing a room and if you pick 2 really solid, very specific details, the room kind of comes to life. Rather than just by rote describing, and then there's a chair in that corner, and then so it's part of it is just reading a lot, and you sort of absorb some of that stuff, and then just doing it. And then I think a lot of that, there's a lot of pruning that happens in revision once you have a draft. You go back and take out as much as you possibly can.
That's a nice word for it.
And yeah,
Pruning.
yeah. You take out stuff because then everything else sort of becomes more intense. So it's just, I don't know. It's
A follow-up
work.
to that.
Yeah.
Do you think that you could have written these books had you not gone back and gotten your MFA?
Yes, but it would have taken me longer. I've been a writer my entire life. I knew when I started writing fiction that there were things that I was doing things wrong, and that someone could teach me how to, like, someone could tell me why things weren't quite working right. And And the program I went to was great because it was a low residency program and you work very closely with one teacher for your term and you send stuff back and forth, and it's just, there are tricks to anything.
Sure.
You can't teach someone how to love language. You can't teach them how to use words beautifully. You can't teach them how to have an eye that allows them to take in the world. But you can teach them that a scene, needs the character doing something, that that character comes out of action, not out of narrative, that you need dialogue. You can help someone make their dialogue better. That was when I figured some of that stuff out, that was huge. And so some of it is technique and craft, some of it is just innate, some of it is just reading all the time, and then if you can lay your own voice over all of that and have an engaging narration, then hopefully all those things click in a way that makes people keep reading. That's your job, is just to keep them reading.
And you do it very well.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, Julie.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for coming.
Hey folks, this is Jeniffer, and as you know, The Premise is the official podcast of the San Diego Writers Festival, which, by the way, is happening this October 8th, in fact, 2022. It's going
live and in person.
Yeah, live and in person. I'm really, really excited. We have so many exciting things happening, so many exciting speakers. They're coming in from all over, and we want you to be there. So Coronado Public Library, the 4th annual San Diego Writers Festival.
SanDiegoWritersFestival.com.
You can subscribe to learn more about our programming and get on the list to win free books and all kinds of cool stuff happening. So
SanDiegoWritersFestival.com.